Now recording. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I record the lessons. I'll be sure to record it tomorrow. Or tomorrow? Monday. On Monday. Yes. I have to look at the schedule to see if we're on to PHP next week.
Want me to look right now?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Someone messing with the settings.
Oh, it doesn't say what we're doing next week. There's a gap. We have week 4 on here, and then there's nothing until week 9. You might not have.
Oh, it's probably just not published.
Yeah.
Getting close to reading week 2. Like, hello? There we go. Is it one of these deals? So, everybody did the share your feedback survey, right?
I think that's what we did today. The operating teacher made us do it in class.
Yep. I know he did. You know how I know?
You got it, don't you?
He replied all on the email they sent around that you have to do it today.
I didn't know it was required. Seems like it's optional.
I know.
But
I know it does.
He didn't start the class until we did it.
Is it like, does it look better for you guys if we do it or something?
I mean, I personally don't care, and it doesn't, like, I find the thing an annoyance because they are insisting on consuming in-class time to do these stupid things. But basically, the thing they complain about is like they don't get enough responses on these things to like be able to get even statistically significant results from them. And apparently Mohawk is like, we particularly just don't answer surveys. But yeah, I wouldn't be making other classes do it if I wasn't being compelled to do so.
While we were filling it out, I looked at Nora, and with all the layoffs, with some of the questions, it felt like we were determining people's jobs. Do you actually use this service? If not, we'll just fire them.
I mean, that's probably not what's happening. Doo-doo-doo. Yes, next week we are doing PHP.
It's going to be hard.
There we go. Then, week 6, we jump back into JavaScript. Ajax is JavaScript. Although it makes sense to cover PHP and then do Ajax, because Ajax is how JavaScript initiates communication with PHP scripts on the server, so it makes sense to do the things in that order.
Are you going to be able to post like the video within the week so that when I come next class, I know what's going on? Like, you get me? Like,
sorry, could you repeat the question a little louder?
will you be able to post the PHP like video on the weekend so that when I come next like the Monday after I have an idea?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'll make sure I get them. I'll make sure I get the video uploaded quickly next week. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. You know what the problem is? I bought a memory card that holds more video, so now I don't have to do it as frequently. So once we've done Ajax, we are then going to do databases. Then, I don't think that's correct. I think our break is earlier than that.
Is it 17?
It's after the PHP.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it sometimes slides around a little bit, but we're also a week behind because we essentially lost the first week because we lost Monday. So don't worry about it. We'll catch it all up in the end. But for today, I wanted to do some. We wanted to do some more Bootstrap. Now I'm trying to remember if we got all the way through the slides last time. Let me see. We definitely got Bootstrap. I said that the starter template's probably useless. Bootstrap versions, we did that. I think this is where we were actually. So, we had just done the in-class code example with the grid system using containers. So, let's fire up a code example. In fact, let's just download the code that we had yesterday. Just open up that package, unzip it, and we'll continue working on it from there. Right? Sound good? I might even just have it still on this computer. Yeah, I still have it. Okay, let's continue on from yesterday. Please load your code editor of choice. Here we go. There we go. So, just to remind ourselves where we were, this was our Bootstrap grid system that we had been putting together. Note what happens when we increase or decrease the width of the viewport. Our items automatically stack in a manner most pleasing. So far, so good? Everybody remembers this, I hope? So when we pull our, when we have our breakpoint that snaps the container so that it no longer has the margins on the side that are auto-adjusting in width, this is called fluid mode. This is container fluid now. So you can make a container fluid by default. The way that you do that, where you are including the Bootstrap class container, you put in -fluid, and then your container is fluid for all widths. It basically turns off the breakpoints. This is probably not what you want for the entire body of the text. However, if your website has a header at the top, that, it's an aesthetic choice, but sometimes you'll want that to be a container fluid and occupy the entire width at the top, and then further down you have it with the margins. So, for example, if I were to take just the title, put that inside of a container fluid, and put the rest inside of a container, non-fluid container, you can see that The div at the top maintains its full width the entire time, but the actual content of the page has the very nice responsive breakpoints. Make sense? So far, so good? Okay. So now, I'd like to show you some of the more advanced Bootstrap components which you can integrate into your web page. We're going to do an example called carousel. You'll have seen carousels many, many times. Anybody use Steam in this classroom? Yeah. On the landing page for Steam, how they have like the splash art for like the games they want you to buy, and it sort of rotates through. You get 5 seconds, then it flips. That's a carousel. That's a carousel. So the simplest thing to do to get a carousel is to go to W3 Schools, as there's a very good example there. If you search this list, you'll find right in the middle Bootstrap. Bootstrap. Make sure you select which version. Which version? Say it. Bootstrap version 5, thank you. If you take a look down the sidebar here, there are quite a few individual Bootstrap topics. Most of these give you a Bootstrap object which you can integrate reasonably easily, quickly and easily. For example, there's a whole lot on Bootstrap tables. It's a way to make HTML tables look less bad. You can see this is a nice looking formatted table. If you've ever just kind of applied borders, and a few of you did on assignment 1, if you just apply borders to like all of your TD and TD elements and your table, then you end up with like, double lines around everything, which, doesn't look completely awful, but that looks nicer, right? Buttons, this is an example that appears in the slides. Progress bars, not bad. So, if you want to add a progress bar to your website, you can do so easily using Bootstrap. Spinners are kind of fun. Spinner, there we go. To create a spinner/loader, use the spinner border class. So you just make a div, include it in the spinner border class, and you get a spinner. So that's fun enough that we can just do it. Div class spinner-border and a div. There we go. And there you go. You can insert spinners quite easily and quickly. That's the sort of thing that you would put in while your JavaScript was waiting for a response from an AJAX request or something like that. You were loading information into the web page, and then once the information is loaded, you would remove the spinner, right? But some of the ones that I wanted to show you are some of the more advanced ones. For example, this is carousel. basically a slideshow. Other useful and interesting ones are things like tooltips. Do you know what a tooltip is? It's when you hover over something and it produces a little box with more description. Have any of you played the Civilization games? No? As time goes on, Civilization games have been relying increasingly on you reading very lengthy paragraphs of text in tooltips to describe game mechanics in game, because, in my opinion, those games have had way too much put into them over time. They're now entirely too complicated. It's bad design. It shouldn't take you 100 hours to play through a game of Civilization. Anyway, so tooltips, very useful. Popover. Boop. Kind of like a tooltip, but with a bit more going on, right? It's got a header section, it's got a body section. Toasts. Toasts are fun. Toasts are basically in-page pop-ups. These are not the same things as pop-ups in the classic or 1990s sense. Pop-ups in that sense have been they've not been a thing for a long time, basically since browsers started preventing web pages from open link in new window, right? But there are some like fun old Flash games which are basically just like close all the pop-ups, and it's just like pop-ups, and you have to close them. And if you get too many pop-ups, you lose. Anyway, so toasts are a bit like pop-ups, except they're embedded in the page itself. Why are they called toasts? Because they pop up like toast. Like toast from a toaster. Scroll Spy is an interesting one. Scroll Spy, when you have several sections, it will highlight the section that you are currently viewing. These also function as links, though. So, if I scroll down to section 2, you can see we move from section 1 to section 2, and then section 3. It just tells you where on the, what your scroll state is within the nav bar. Make sense? Any questions? These are fun and useful components. Ooh, and if I may say so, you may also easily convert a web page to dark mode. If you include data ES theme dark in the HTML element, it turns the entire page to dark mode. So, HTML element, data-bs what was it again? Theme is equal to dark, there we go, and dun 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 dun, dark mode, which is much easier on the eyes. Does anybody know why we should always use dark mode?
It's more clear.
It's more clear and readable, but also eye strain. Dark mode is just sending far fewer photons into your eyeballs. So if you are in a profession where you have to look at a computer screen for a living, which, let's face it, even if you're not a programmer, that's most of us these days, making sure that dark mode is always enabled when possible just reduces the amount of strain on your eyes over time. Make sense? So, dark mode, always. I expect everybody to put their laptops in dark mode right now. So let's talk about the carousel. Let's integrate a carousel into our web page. First, we will need a couple of images in order to have a carousel going. Let's see. We've done ducks. We've done pigeons. What's another species of bird or subcategory of birds?
Pterodactyls.
Pterodactyls are reptiles. But
birds are dinosaurs.
I mean, I think birds are related to dinosaurs, but they're still distinct from dinosaurs.
Are birds reptiles? Because they say they have feathers now.
They're warm-blooded. And reptiles are not warm-blooded, so. But we can still do pterodactyls. You're just seeing if I can spell it. Oh, Google helped me. There you go. Pterodactyl. There we go. I have to say, I definitely wouldn't want to meet one of these things. Not bird one. Yeah. Not bird two. And that's HTM, that will not do. Oh, that's kind of amusing. Not bird three. There we go. So, to integrate the carousel or any other Bootstrap JavaScript enabled component, you go to the W3 Schools page, you find their example code, you copy it, and you put it into your HTML. For us, let's put it at the top of this one. There we go. From here, there are certain key attributes that have to be changed. Obviously, we will have to change the source images for the carousel. Taking a look at our thing here, we have not bird one, not bird two, and not bird three. So, have I ever explained the purpose of the alt tag on images? So, the alt tag is the alt text. Are you familiar with what alt text is? It's text that appears as a tooltip if you hover over the image. So, continuing our theme of dinosaurs, if we consider popular webcomic dinosaur comics, webcomics will often have a hidden secondary joke hidden inside of the alt text. So if you hover over it, you get the secondary joke. But Dinosaur Comics is unique because they also hide a tertiary joke inside of the default subject of the contact link. So you can see there are actually quite a few jokes going on there. That's all of the jokes that I've been able to find so far anyway. So that's what alt text is. That's what its purpose is in a webcomic. But for the rest of humanity, the purpose of the alt text is for people with screen readers. People who have visual impairment, sometimes even quite heavy levels of visual impairment, even people who are outright blind, still have to use the internet. And images obviously are very visual information. A blind person is not going to be able to understand an image or anything contained in it. So the purpose of the alt text is to describe the image in such a manner that a person who can't actually see the image will still be able to understand what's being signified. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but you're not expected to put 1,000 words into the alt text. But you should provide some description of what the image is in the alt text. Make sense? So, in this case, there we go. First image is, this is an avian reptile. This is a reptile and not a bird. Reptiles have cold blood. Birds have warm blood. So now, if we reload our page, you can see that our gallery is in place. Now, a problem is that this image is quite large. We may wish to make it a bit smaller so that the text is, a bit better fitted to this. So basically, the problem that we have, Bootstrap, the Bootstrap grid system will attempt to constrain basically it'll take the size of items into account when determining the width of things. Right now the width of that column div is being set by the carousel, and the size of the carousel is being set by the size of the images. What we want is for the size of the images to be set by the container. We want to reverse that relationship. Which we might be able to do by putting it inside of a div of size container fluid, or within the container fluid class. Or actually, a good question is, Yes, it was. The problem was in a different location. The problem was I had set this breakpoint small, and that was interfering with it. So there you go. Now we have a nice, appropriately sized image carousel inside of one of our divisions. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. So, Bootstrap includes a host of features to ensure your application can be responsive. We have responsive images, tables, components, utilities, embeddings, and the layout with the grid system. Bootstrap components will produce a responsive design without you really having to do much work at all. For responsive images, if we include the image in the Bootstrap class ImageFluid, this will scale the image with its parent element. This does similar work to width 100%. However, it adds a few other responsive elements that are not included in that. So, for example, if I wanted to include an image after the carousel here, I know it's under a carousel, but you know. Source is not bird1.jpg. Let me show you the difference. So if I have this image that I've inserted, and it's not in a responsive class, you can see that the image completely overruns the size of its containing div, right? But if I include that in class image-fluid, you see that constrains it to the size of the div that it's sitting in very nicely. You don't have to do any more work than that. Make sense? So, including items in Bootstrap classes make them integrate and work nicely with your layout, your design as given. You should try to write your websites. Excuse me. For assignment 2, you should try to make it so that most of your page elements have Bootstrap classes included. Okay? Responsive tables. Tables are kind of tricky. Sometimes they're just too wide and you can't really do anything about it because the data itself needs to be constrained. You can't just have table elements crunched together the way that the navbar does, right? So this is one of the very few exceptions where you can have a horizontal scroll bar and that be okay. The class table responsive will cause tables to scroll horizontally on small devices, but the table has to be wrapped in the table responsive div. I'm just conscious of time. I'd like to do a demo of tables with you, but I'm not sure I'll have time today. Some components, such as the navbar, will automatically reconfigure with smaller screen sizes. In this case, from a horizontal to an optional vertical drop-down menu, right? You get this for free using Bootstrap. You can imagine how much work that would be to do that by hand, right? The display utility classes can be used to hide and unhide elements based on screen size. So the way that works is you have the D class with breakpoint and value set. Breakpoint is small, medium, large, extra large, and extra, extra large. Value is none, inline, inline block, etc. The media queries affect screen widths with the given breakpoint or larger. This is basically a way of creating the @media CSS rules without actually having to make the @media CSS rules. You need to combine them to do things like only display elements on certain screen sizes. The class ratio allows for embedding content that maintains the ratio across screen sizes. So ratio A times B maintains an A times B aspect ratio. So you could say ratio 16:9, and it would maintain a 16:9 aspect ratio across all screen sizes. The grid system we already talked about. This is a pretty good demonstration of it though. So the grid system has 12 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? You can divide this up by reducing the number of columns, but you can also specify asymmetrical column widths by saying how many of these spans you want to make your column across. So in this example, span 4, span 8 gives you a 1/3, 2/3 layout. Relative ratios of different columns can be customized for different device sizes using column size number classes that allow us to account for large, medium, small, and extra small devices. It may make sense to alter column ratios for small screens. So, for example, if you have a column that's being used for a list of links along the side, you may want to take that and hide it as a drop-down menu on a mobile device, right? When you're designing for responsive, or when you're designing for phones, you really do need to actually test out your layout at various widths to make sure that things are being broken. The breakpoints are all appropriate and it still looks good at all of these different resolutions. You must actually test your websites, right? Because otherwise, basically, it is possible to misuse these classes to make things that look bad. In which case, if things look bad, my recommendation is to remove some of these added tags before you try adding more, right? So, if you've written if one of your classes is column for medium, my recommendation for debugging is to try it without the medium first and see if that makes it do what you expect it to, right? You can always add it back in later, right? So, there's the end of the slides. So would you like to see a table quickly before we go? Cool. So I'll put a table in here. Table row, or table head, or fed, as it were. TH, A, A, B, C. So, next table row, and table row, TD1 and TD3. Four, 5, 6. So if we refresh this, zoom it in a little bit, shall we? Your default HTML table looks terrible. Even if you put a border on it, it will still look terrible. The way that you do that, table, TH and TD, set it for border 2 pixel or 1 pixel solid white. There we go. Did I save that? Is it commas? Might be commas. Yeah, there you go. That still looks bad, right? Consider the following. All we need to do, include the table in class table. Suddenly it looks good. Not enough lines? Let's also add table dash border. Border. Bordered, I think. Yes, bordered. You get more lines. This still looks much better than it did before. It's occupying the space, right? Another one that you can do is table striped. Table dash striped. This is more useful when you have a lot of rows. So let me just increase the number of rows here. It makes it much easier to read the table if it's striped because you can sort of read across a row and not get lost quite so easily. There are a lot of other table properties as well, which are very useful. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So thank you very much for your time and attention, folks, and we'll see you next week.